Our final topic in Excel is pivot tables. We'll first of all talk about what pivot tables are, how you create them, then we'll have a look at how you can change their layout, and lastly we'll have a look at how you can do calculations within your pivot table. First of all, just download the practice file. So if you scroll down underneath the video, you'll see the practice file there. Click to download it. Then click the downloaded file and double click to open the Excel spreadsheet in there. With the file that opens, then you can click on Enable Editing. And lastly, File and Save As, and save it into wherever you normally save your files. Okay, and if you want to split your screen in two, click on the green bar at the top of the Excel window, and you can just drag that all the way over until your mouse pointer touches the side of the screen. And then you can pick the video to fill the other half of the screen. In my case, I'm actually going to pick this finished pivot table. So this is just to kind of show you, first of all, what a pivot table looks like and why you would want to use one. So to start off, I suppose this is the spreadsheet that you've downloaded. So you can see in here, there's a whole load of student grades. There's grades for two different students, Eliza and Mary, and grades for 3 different months, and I think 6 different subjects. So, you know, even with just 2 students in there, you can see that it's a lot of information, 36 rows. You can imagine how many rows I'd have if I had 50 students in my class. So it would get quite difficult to kind of narrow down. Let's say I have 50 or 60 students and I just want to see everybody's maths results for January. I'd have to read through every row of information, and if I wanted to do some kind of calculation with them, I'd have a bit more work to do then of adding up all the January maths grades and so on. So what a pivot table is for sort of representing this information in easier to work with way. It'll let you, for example, filter down your information much more quickly. You'll see when you do have a completed pivot table that it will look something like this. In this case, this is showing us the average scores for all the subjects, for all the months, and for all the students as well. But what I can also do then with the finished pivot table, you'll see you'll have a few areas where there's this little drop down option. And when you click that, you'll be able to choose. So for example, within students, I can choose to see all students or just Eliza or just Mary. So I might click there just to see Mary's grades. And my pivot table then changes to reflect that. So now I'm just seeing Mary's grades, and I can get more specific than that. And for example, say I just want to see Mary's grades for March. Okay, so that's just showing me her March grades in each subject. And I could also get, again, even more specific and say I just want to see her maths and science grades for March. Okay, so it, like I said, lets you kind of drill down and see the information that you want to see much more quickly than if you had to read through rows and rows when it's laid out like this. Okay, so I'm going to just make this one full screen here now and show you how to turn this into what you just saw. So first of all, similar to when we worked with charts, to start off, we want to highlight all the information that we want to include in our pivot table. So click and highlight all of the data here and include the headings at the top, because then it'll pick up on those. Then go to the Insert menu, and the very first option on the menu there is Pivot Table. So that's the one we're going to go for. So you can click on Pivot Table next. And in the box that appears then, we really don't need to do anything else. It's already selected the correct information, so that's what we've done by highlighting it first. So you can leave that as it is. Also here, we're being asked to choose between a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. So either I can have it here in next to my existing data, or I can put it in a new separate worksheet. So I'm going to leave it on new worksheet and click OK. So that'll start a new sheet, and you should see it looks something like this. Over on the side here, we have this panel called Pivot Table Fields. If you don't see that, by the way, you'll see on the menu at the top that you can click on Field List to show it. So if you click or unclick Field List, it'll show that panel on the side. So in here then, it's shown me all the different fields that are available for this pivot table. So I have my month, subject, student and score, and it, like I said, it's picked up on those from the headings from our data that we highlighted. So to include these in your pivot table, you're just going to tick the box next to each one. And you can see there over on the left-hand side, it is creating the pivot table. Okay, now so far it looks nothing like the finished one, so it doesn't really look any more readable than it did before. Probably even a little bit less readable than it was before. So we're going to have to do some changes to it in terms of layout, but you should see it start to appear at least at this stage. Okay, so working on the layout then, in your pivot table fields panel, have a look down underneath. So there's a few boxes there, one called filters, one for columns, one for rows, and one for values. So filters, first of all, filters is the what you kind of see at the top of the report. So in the one I just showed you, it was student. So to add student as a filter, you're just going to click on student where it is at the moment underneath rows and drag it up to filters. And you'll see over here your student filter appear at the top. So now you'll be able to click on that and see either all grades or Eliza's grades or Mary's grades. So we'll leave it on all for the moment. I'll come back to this. The other thing we can choose then is what we want to appear in the columns of the table and what we want to appear in the rows. So at the moment it's showing both month and subject in rows. So we probably want to move one of those over to the columns. So I'm going to move month over into the columns. Okay, so that's what that pivot table is going to look like with our columns kind of going across this way and subjects going down this way. Just to show you there, you could swap that around if you wanted. So if you prefer the look of subjects going across the way in rows, months going down the way in the rows, that's fine either. Okay, so whichever one you think looks better. I'm just going to put it back to this. Okay, and next then we have the sum of score as well. So the values section is where we're going to get to do some different calculations. So at the moment it's set to sum of score. That's calculating all of the, so in this example here, it's adding up Mary's and Eliza's scores for art for January. So adding different students' grades together is probably not what we want it to do. So we'll change this to one of the other options instead. So click on sum of score here and then go to value field settings. And then here you'll see a number of different options. So you can see there you have sum, count, average, max and min. These are hopefully familiar from when we did formulas a couple of weeks ago. So sum, first of all, is the one that's going to add different values together, which is what it's currently doing. Count will count them. Average will find the average. So that could be quite useful for us if we want to know the average score for all students for a particular subject for a particular month. Max will find the highest. So again, that could be useful if we want to know like what was the highest grade in that subject that month. And min is the opposite then, that's the lowest grade. So yeah, so we will pick average in this case, but you can try the others out yourself. Okay, so that has created the average. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit there. So yeah, so now it's showing the average grade for January, February and March for each subject. Okay, some of the numbers here are maybe looking a little kind of untidy. It's just all the extra decimal places. So the last thing we're going to do is just do some formatting on this pivot table so it looks a bit more kind of presentable. So first of all, just highlight all your numbers that you want to change. Go to the home menu, and in the number section on the home menu, you can use increase decimal or decrease decimal. So we'll click on increase first. Actually, sorry, I probably should have clicked decrease, but anyway, click increase. That'll give them all the same amount of decimal places, and then you can go back from there. So you can click, you can either leave it at maybe 1 decimal place or 2, or just go to 0 decimal places and have them all be whole numbers instead. So whatever you think looks best yourselves. Also then we might just center align some of our information. So I'm going to highlight all of the months and the numbers underneath them as well, and maybe center that. So in the alignment section, you can see there, if I choose this option here, it will center them. Okay, last couple of things you might want to do then. Here it's just put in the word column labels, so I can pick something a bit more descriptive there and maybe type in month. And under row labels I might type subject instead. Okay, so that kind of looks nice and neat now. Lastly then, just yourself try out the different filters. So again, for example, I can click where at the moment I'm showing all students. I could choose to just show Mary's grades and click OK. So now I'm just seeing Mary's grades for the different months. And under month, I can choose, maybe I just want to see January and February. Okay, and under subject, maybe I just want to see art and English. Okay, so you can see then that your pivot table has updated to reflect your different choices. So now we're just seeing Mary's average score for art for those 2 months, and the same for English.